Hello and welcome to Small Town Big Life Podcast, coming at you from the tool shed behind Grace Fellowship Church. I am Pastor Drew Collins, and Jackie Brown is flying the plane. So we have that music's loud.
I'm sorry. you had it all the way up, dude.
A very special guest is returning for another visit. Diana Welshans, whose background is vast and shares a lot of common ground with my own background. So we get on the phone and it just goes on and on and on. And we just love her and glad to have her back. Hello, Diana.
Hi.
Why don't you, for the viewers, bring them up to speed and let everyone know about your background?
A lot of music. Went to school for music. Got up to student teaching, quit. Went and studied jazz. Got a song published, began working as a composer, studied drama, started working as a music director, then started working as an actor, ended up in Philly doing regional theater, and studied acting at HB Studios. Came home, had babies, and then while I was raising kids, I had a performance troupe, which was live performance, and then we began getting into film, and did a lot of film.
Yeah.
And submitted some for contests and things and stuff like that. Did well. And that's the gist of it. I dabble in everything.
Yeah. I know that is kind of just a broad stroke, because I know you've been involved in some pretty heavy-hitting productions. And speaking of that in theater, our topic today, we had discussed doing classic films, and then you kind of unpacked an important point and said, it's kind of important to visit the concept of where it all started, which is theater, maybe before we glide into classic films.
That's really good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Am I too close to the mic? Am I okay? Okay, good.
You're good.
Don't mind me.
She can control your own volume if it's too loud.
All right. When I studied Greek theater.
Right.
And basically that's where the roots are. What all started with storytelling, sitting around the fire. But Greek theater, it's really interesting. Every theater during the time of Greece, when it was prior to the Romans,
right,
they had their own Greek god over the theater.
Yep.
And and they did comedies and they did tragedies and everything else. What is really interesting is that it grew and it morphed into a much more realistic theater, which you had during the days of the Romans. They said, those evil Romans. They watched the gladiators and they would, and people being killed. What it was is that they wanted more realism.
Yeah, I know. And I know that because I was a theater major and been involved in a lot of productions myself, acting and sound design and film design, and I love it just as much as you do. And I was surprised. I remember being young when you get through like what you're talking about, learning about Greek and theater and how you didn't write your lines down. You had to remember. You were told your lines.
Yeah.
And then, but the big bucket of cold water, so to speak, for me was when our professor started to tell us that theater as the way we know it now and the concept of what we owe all started in Russia. And I was like, oh, really? and so Russian theater, which capitalized on everything that happened in Greek theater and Roman theater, and Russian theater is where Americans and Europeans kind of said that's what theater should be like in the modern age.
Well, what's really interesting is that, it's very easy to place judgment on the Romans, saying, what they did to the Christians.
Oh, yeah.
And they would have these huge battleships. They'd fill the Colosseum up with water, and they'd fight to the death. And people were literally killed, and everybody loved it. They were just so hungry for realism and something more and something more. This is a little scary. Northern invading barbaric tribes came and, undid Rome. And all theater was squashed.
Yeah.
Everything drama. It got reintroduced by the church, and it was in the Middle Ages. And the church was very fussy about it because so much of it was mockery, in the past and things like that. So they had these huge pageant wagons that would come down, these pageants, and they would, go down as a precursor to our parades. But what was really cool then, it grew into these small traveling bands that became like the Renaissance comedy, French Renaissance comedy, and all the props were on their backs.
Yeah.
And on and on and on it goes. Well, what is interesting, I agree with you, because then things kept changing, and we had the great Russian theater.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's what came over to New York. Well, then you go into Hollywood and the early talkies.
Yeah.
Well, so much of it, people just would sit there spellbound watching people get onto a subway. It was fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then they tried to come up with stories. Slowly but surely, the actors came in from Broadway, and the writers came in, and they would bring much more depth to the thing.
Yeah.
So then suddenly you're seeing great writing, great stories. And here we are now in the 60s. We want more realism, more realism,
Yeah.
more realism. And, I sound like somebody who loves censorship, and I don't.
I don't think are you familiar with Revolt of the Beavers?
Revolt of the Beavers.
No.
No? Oh, okay. It was
Wow.
it was, I think it's Beavers. It was and I'm going to be a little foggy. But it was in the oh my goodness. During McCarthyism and all that stuff. It was a kids play, and it was labeled as
okay.
having communist overtones. And
wow.
the government wanted to shut it down, and people were like, "Are you kidding me? It's a theatrical production." And now that I have said it, you will Google it,
Yeah.
and you will look up about it.
Yes.
And you'll look into more. But what you said about the Christian bringing the theater back, and then controversy, and then you just brought up censorship, and Revolt of the Beavers popped into my head.
Oh my gosh, that's so
I think
funny.
there's a movie about it.
Really?
I think there's
That's
a
interesting.
comedy. I think Tim Robbins might be in it.
Oh, really?
It's about the whole thing, and
Well,
so
and it's interesting about censorship, because I'm convinced you can't legislate righteousness. You got to have a heart change.
yeah.
know?
I know. It's the human heart that changes. That's why I tell people when Christians say we need to pass all these laws, I'm like, well, that's not going to do anything. It doesn't change the heart.
No.
The fact that people want to do it's the problem.
Yeah. Well, and so you had the Haze Codes, and yeah, they were. Oh, the good thing about the codes was these guys had to write really well.
Yeah, it does challenge your right.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
The writing was the best it ever was.
Yeah.
And I think the movie making was the best it ever was. And they could really tell a story to hold people in.
Right.
So they dropped the codes, and the storytelling is gone,
Yeah.
And let's just be cinematic about it.
Yeah.
Let's just, do all that. And there's not a whole lot left to the imagination.
Right.
And as a result, things are imploding. There's got to be a way to get back to that. But at the same time, there are some really good films out there.
Yeah.
Really good films that I think could even pass the...
Well, when you said we need to talk about theater first, I started to think about a couple of different things. One of them was the transition into film from theater, and I was in a conversation the other day with someone, and I was thinking of you the whole time because I thought, man, I wish Diana would be a fly on the wall here, and so the conversation went like this. I was telling him about Shakespeare. I said, when you learn about Shakespeare, it'll blow your mind because I said, you hear all these people use phrases like Shakespeare would roll over in his grave, and I said, Shakespeare was a drama queen. He was about the drama. He was about if he was alive, he was about putting people in the seats, and plays were boring, so people were like, oh, he's all about drama and nonsense and poisoning and betrayal and infidelity. He's over the top. That's why his theater was on the outskirts, and my theater professor used to tell me, he said, listen, if Shakespeare were alive today, he wouldn't be doing the classics like As Good as It Gets and Gone with the Wind. He would be doing Transformers and Spider-Man.
He'd be working with Tarantino.
Yeah, he would be the guy that wants to fill the theater. He doesn't care about this other stuff. And
Right.
and people have this misconception. Now, to get to your transition, and I think it's important, one of the most, and writing, what you just brought up, two important things. One of my favorite eras in the entertainment industry is when television first come out, and they didn't know what to do with it. And so what did they do? They filmed live theater because
Yes,
that's what, and that's why it was so stressful, because there's no second chances. We're not filming anything. You're broadcasting, and this is and that's how Rod Serling got in.
Yeah.
And then when he got the Twilight Zone, all of his plays that he wrote were about racism and prejudice and controversial topics. And so when he got a television show, they said, "You're not doing that. This is going to be science fiction." And he thought, okay, well, I'll just use that genre for the same controversial topics, because God, racism, and everything.
Oh my goodness!
And
Right.
he did. He certainly
was
did.
awesome.
He's my favorite, and I know there's a million good ones, but he's my favorite. And I was thinking about how exciting Spielberg or somebody needs to make a movie about that marriage, because
Absolutely.
theater was pregnant with television in terms of the concept. And when television came to fruition, because our topic being classic films, they wouldn't exist if theater hadn't, when television came out, they didn't know what to do. And they said, okay, record live theater. And that's where the idea for movies came from.
It's really, well, I know, what's the movie that Al Pacino made?
Oh, my.
There's a lot of
I know, forgive me. The Gangster, it's a remake of the one.
Scarface.
Scarface.
Yeah.
Scarface is what got the Haze Codes up
Well,
and running.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And if to look at it now, it looks pretty mild.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
South Park is worse.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely. I'm grateful for the Haze Codes, just because such good writing came out. But Hollywood was a mess. If you look at the underground and the background of what was going on, it was horrible. It was a mess. And so in the 60s, it was almost like the Band-Aid got pulled up, and all this gunk came out. It's the only word to describe it, the underbelly. But it's going to be interesting to see where we go.
Yeah.
Where we head out from here. I know Spielberg has said repeatedly, Hollywood is imploding.
Yeah.
If they don't get the writing going.
Well, that's what we've said a lot of times. We've talked about several times that there's not that much originality
No.
in movies. There's
Very
so many
frustrating.
remakes, and let's just do a prequel, and let's just do a sequel.
And I know they're all about making money, but the age of the individual, the people that are just shine because they're so unique, it just seems like it's disappeared.
Yeah.
I mean, people now go, oh, well, he's a successful this and a successful that. And I'm like, that's cool, man. How original is he?
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
I mean,
I
because
agree.
the ones who are the innovators and the originators are the ones whose films will stay on your shelf the longest.
Oh,
You know?
yeah.
And
That's good. I like that.
yeah, so it used to be, people defined how good you were by how successful you are, and it's like, unfortunately now, being really good at something doesn't really make a parallel with being successful at it.
Yeah. It just got really lopsided, and it has to come back. It's got to come back to center, even swing a little bit the other way.
Yeah.
It really does, and I don't know what it'll take. It could be live stream on the webisodes, webisodes or live stream or internet. I don't know.
Well, that's where people that don't have a lot of money can go and flex their creative muscles is webisodes and the internet, and you see sometimes content and things more interesting on there. And I know now, I'm not suggesting that if I look at something and it reminds me of something else, I think we all are the product of our influences and our environment. So I know to a certain extent some things are going to shine through, but I think the internet has done two things simultaneously, a really good one and a really bad one. It gives a platform to everyone is the bad part, and the good part is it gives a platform to everyone. so
The blessing and the curse.
Yeah,
Yes.
the blessing. But you were talking about writing and the codes. Now, and this is one of the topics I think that was on our list because you just hit a nerve. What do you think, because you mentioned the writing codes, what do you think made films then still be able to thrive, and what's missing from them now? You know what I mean? Because we talk about classic movies.
Well, it's really interesting because I remember there was an actress, Melanie Griffith, was commenting on Jean Harlow, and she said it's very sad. Nobody talks about her anymore. And those old movies, you had to be patient. They took time to develop them. You know, in other words, develop the exposition and open things up and bring in whatever. Where kids today, my gosh, most kids don't even know who Jimmy Stewart is. Or Katharine Hepburn. It's scary. And they want things bam, 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 immediately. It's very instantaneous. And you and I talked about that. I said the hard part with a webisode, you got to show some development in the character. Or there will be no depth. And you got to do it in 5 minutes.
Right.
And then you move on. You got to just keep moving. That's really, really hard to do. TV moves really fast that way.
And
movies, they're not.
Some of the old ones
trying
would
to do
cram way more dialogue in.
Yeah.
And that's why they talk so fast. Yo, firecracker, you are. See, come over here. See, all right, what's the plan, hot stuff? And the script, you're like, oh my goodness, there's a 140-page script for an 80-minute movie.
His Girl Friday, Bringing Up Baby. I mean, Howard Hawks deliberately had them overlap everything because they had to get it in 2 hours.
That would be so tough as an actor.
Yeah, they just move like crazy. And His Girl Friday is like a symphony. Have you ever seen that?
What is it?
His Girl Friday.
I don't think so.
Oh my gosh.
When did it come out? Roughly
1940.
Okay, no, I passed.
Rosalind Russell and Cary Grant, some of the best.
Oh, I love Cary Grant.
Yeah.
One-liners, and the timing is impeccable. You gotta promise me you'll see it before
I will.
the next
Writing
episode
it
we
down.
do.
When I'm watching this back, I write this stuff down.
Oh,
so
it's like a symphony.
It's funny.
It's so cool.
When you work in theater, until you act, you don't appreciate that stuff as much. Because when I originally just wanted to be in film, but I wanted to do the acting, so I went into theater because I wanted trial by fire. Traditionalists believe, you know more than anyone, there's these two groups of people, and then there's one in the middle. The two groups are the film actors and the theater actors who are traditionalists, who look at film actors like, right, whatever. And we don't get a second chance. We can't call out for line in the middle of a performance. And this theater is real acting, and then there's film actors that look at it like, I make something, I craft something. I'm not claiming to be a performer. I'm claiming to be an actor who makes something. Now I'm in the middle. I like them both. I don't really have a camp that I fall in. But when you get in theater and you learn about acting, because at first people watch movies and go, oh, that's easy. But remembering the dialogue, and then remembering the dialogue of the person you're talking to, and then not stepping on their lines, and then having the harmony to make it look real, and the timing and keeping the beats right and all that stuff. People that can make that look natural takes
a lot of work.
It's way harder than people think it is.
Oh my gosh, it's a lot of work. And I know even, you and I talked a little bit about episode 3 that I did with
your webisode.
Yeah. And that was a quiet scene. And I said, how do we keep this energy going? And we worked it and we worked it and we worked it so that till the time we were able to keep it interesting. Obviously, you can do some things in post to bring it up a little bit. But people are afraid to do quiet.
And
you got to
we were talking about music and sound in film a couple of weeks ago, and the power of silence is it can be a very effective tool if used correctly in the right place. And like you said, when it's mostly visual stuff, that's the one thing that film has a great advantage of. It can tell a lot of the story just with a picture.
It's amazing.
So going back to the differences you find in old film versus, or I guess we say classic film versus newer films in terms of what qualities it had that are sorely missing now. I mean, I know you covered a few of them. Is there anything that jumps out of you?
Yeah, this is getting to a later topic. I think the film scores are better, although we have some fantastic composers.
Agreed.
John Williams, Hans Zimmer. But But then there was some classic films where the scores weren't so hot, where they were directing the music. You know, they do the little pizzicato strings to bring in humor. You know,
Yeah.
and stuff that you see on some of the TV stations now.
Right.
But more than anything, it's the writing.
Yeah.
The acting is very good. I think we have phenomenal actors right now.
Yeah.
We really do.
Yeah.
I think they're desperate for good
Yeah.
writing.
Yeah.
We have really great directors.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we have a lot of them, and it's the one. It's like anything else now. Some of them, the bubble to the top, eventually, and rise above the others. I mean, I'm lucky. I grew up in the Spielberg era, and I got to watch him become what he is now. And there are so many directors now that when you ask them, who was your idol, they go Spielberg. Like J.J. Abrams, for example.
Yeah.
And he, they cut their chops on the people that I got. When you were talking about the 60s and the underbelly of Hollywood and all that stuff and how I think you were kind of identifying that as when film moved towards, hey, we got to get better at this. And indeed, I agree. And that's when your Spielbergs and people and Lucas and people like that started popping up and said, listen, I take this very serious.
Right.
And
I feel like there was like a depth change.
Yeah.
Right then and there from.
I agree.
I'm thinking about musicals.
Yeah.
And it's very campy and it's happy and it's la 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 la. And then you get to the 60s and then there's this depth to everything. You know, you're going from like The Sound of Music to The Deer Hunter.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and to me that's the huge change there was that mentality.
And that echoes history repeating itself, what you said about people wanting more realism in theater, and then it comes full circle in film.
Yeah.
Right.
When they say, they want more
Well,
realism.
did you ever see the musical Oliver?
Yeah,
Yes.
a long time
A
ago.
lot of realism there.
Yeah.
That was.
It's in older films, young people that won't watch older films are really depriving themselves. I used to tell my daughter, who went to school for film and media, now she works in stop motion animation, and she find it difficult to get into something that's black and white. And I said, well, as you go through art school, you're going to change your attitude. And I started to explain to her the palette, lighting, and how hard it is.
Oh, my word.
How incredibly hard it is to make that look like it. I go, you look at it and it just looks like a black and white movie, but I mean, when we do this podcast, I intentionally put different colors in different places, so visually in the screen, different things will work differently when you see it. And this is just a podcast. I mean, in a film, to get black and white, to do that, and having to shoot film nighttime scenes at noon, so you could turn the contrast down when you developed it to make it look like night. And there was so much work involved. So when you learn about the work, and you'll appreciate it more.
Oh, it's so fat. Jack Kardick, the cinematographer.
Yeah, I've heard that name.
He was really something. And Jack Cardiff, I think was his name. They didn't have filters or anything, and I think it was during the War and Peace, and he needed fog, and there was no fog, and he took his camera lens and went. And put it in front.
Brilliant.
And filmed it.
That's brilliant.
I know. Another director who filmed Hondo with, is it not Janet Page? Oh, why do I know her name like my own? But anyway, she was a Broadway actor, and she did this with John Wayne. And that whole look has a very dusty, kind of dried out look to it. He went and got a woman's nylon stocking.
And put it over the lens?
Put it over the lens to get
wow.
that. Yeah.
It's amazing when you hear how they actually achieved something like that. And then you notice it more. I mean, even in a modern movie, I just saw behind the scenes on Friday the 13th, and they were talking about the use of red in Friday the 13th.
And also in I see dead people.
Oh, yeah.
Sixth Sense. Yeah,
yeah. Sixth Sense,
and
yes.
it's something you don't think, like the oranges in The Godfather.
Yeah.
Yes.
The Orange is the Godfather.
And then you see it, and you can't unsee it.
Yeah.
And you see it everywhere.
Then you notice it. Cecil B. DeMille had them spray painting flowers in the desert. When I think it was for The Greatest Story Ever Told. When the
Really?
Jesus
Wow.
and he had an orchestra come out while they were filming to play the music so the actors could hear the music. I mean,
Wow.
the length. Now, when we talk about epic films, which
Mm-hmm.
I'll get into that in a minute, but what you're talking about, both of you guys are bringing up the lengths they go to with the lenses and all that. You know, and I'm sure you probably know this too. We've heard of who invented the Dolly Shot. And
Yeah. Who did that?
Hitchcock.
Hitchcock,
It was
yeah.
and I think it was Vertigo. And we see it now all the time. And it's that thing
Oh,
where
yes.
it looks like it's
Yeah.
moving towards the actor, but the background is moving further away
Yes.
from the actor, but the camera is moving toward. Hitchcock did that in Vertigo. He had
One of my
a
favorite
tower
films.
built and laying down on its side. So when he filmed the scene, they had a dolly to slide the camera towards the actor very quickly, and as they slide the camera towards the actor, they simultaneously pull the lens back to widen
Oh,
the shot.
that's so cool.
So the
Yeah.
camera.
I did not know that.
Yeah,
That's
the camera.
new.
It's called a dolly shot. So the camera is moving towards the actor, and the focus is widening at the same time. So you see this weird thing. The first time you see it, you go, "Whoa, what's going on?" And now it's common. They do it in
Yeah.
movies to accentuate to make it's a really really powerful statement. Someone's in some shock, or they just get some bad news.
Well, they
Hitchcock
use-
and it's called the dolly shot.
They
yeah.
use it a lot in Malcolm X.
Yeah.
I didn't see that.
Yeah.
I didn't see that. Yeah, it's Hitchcock invented it.
I did not know that. I didn't
Yeah.
know he did
Yeah.
that.
That's
well, it's interesting.
Film school. You look like my film school teacher, incidentally. So
One.
she
Thank you.
she was incredibly strict. Okay. Anyway, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Wow.
No,
Great.
well, I know you
Wonderful.
physically. You look like I liked her. She was
Oh.
just very, very strict, and I found out some things she said. Okay. I don't want to get down too far a rabbit's hole. My acting professor had lunch with her a lot, and he told me I had all A's, and I said I had a 4.0. I said I'll get an A, and he goes, "Oh, don't count on it." And I said I work really hard in there. What are you talking about, bro? And he's like, she said she doesn't like to give out A's because people need to be knocked off their high horse to work harder. She said to get an A in her class is almost impossible. I go, that's unethical, man.
Yeah.
And he goes, I don't care, Drew. I'm just telling you how she
Yeah.
is. That's the way she is. And
Well, that's not me.
He goes, she has this attitude like, this is film class, and you think you're going to come in here and it's just going to be a breeze and a joke, but I take it very seriously, and it's not, and
Wow.
she has this preconceived view of students. And now I loved her, and she was nice, and but I dropped her class. And
did.
after I got, unfortunately, once I had done like 90% of it.
Oh my
I
gosh.
transferred schools, though. That's why.
Oh.
So I'm sorry.
Well, Hitchcock, Finding Harry or something about Harry, the one with Shirley MacLaine.
Yeah.
He took all those trees. There were no leaves on them. It shows Vermont in the fall.
Uh-huh.
He literally glued the leaves.
The leaves.
on.
I've heard of similar things like that being done.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work. Have
Wow.
you, I think we might have brought this up. Jackie and I talk about this all the time. Have you seen the movies that made us?
Yeah.
Those are fun to watch because
That's where I just saw the thing about Red on Friday the 13th.
Okay,
It just came
okay.
out with a new one.
I've seen them all except the Friday the 13th
it
one.
just came out yesterday.
I,
or
Oh, yeah.
day
I watched
before.
them all
haven't seen
except
them.
Friday the 13th.
But it is really interesting because it shows you all these little behind the scene things that you were like,
But it's inspiring
Oh,
yeah.
it is.
to see how hard these people
oh my
work.
gosh, what Stanley Kubrick did in 2001 Space
Oh,
Odyssey.
no doubt.
Oh, it was crazy.
Insane.
Yeah, it's really cool.
And what's funny is as a person who takes an interest in these things, you don't even have to work in film or theater, just someone who knows about it. And then we all do the same thing. We'll see a movie. What do you think? And I'm like, a movie typically represents 2 years of someone's life that they've
Exactly.
given blood, sweat, and
Yeah,
tears.
really.
And the rest of us a lot of times go, but the thing is, they know that. I mean, when you see these people being interviewed, they know when one of their films was a dud.
Yeah.
And what do
Well-
you define classic movie anyway?
I saw that and I go, oh my gosh, what am I going to say here? Because there's a lot of old movies that I really don't want to define as classic.
That's what I mean. Because I have a specific definition. What's yours?
Something that endures through time. And I think you have to start the clock at 25 years previous.
Yeah, and there has to be a. Yeah, I'm with you.
Absolutely. But for instance, Tombstone. Oh my gosh, that's the
Amazing.
movie.
Yeah.
I never get tired of seeing that movie.
Right.
But that's rapidly becoming a classic film.
Yeah.
But it's just got to endure time where, you'll sit down and watch it 30 years from now and you go, oh, yeah, that's a great film.
Mm-hmm.
It's getting even more popular because of his Amazon documentary.
What's that? I don't know about
Oh,
that.
it's called Val.
Oh, really? Oh, yes, I heard about that.
Yeah,
Okay.
and he's got throat cancer. He can't talk anymore.
Oh, really?
He's got a voice box, and he
Seriously?
Yeah.
But the thing about him is he documented his entire life with cameras since he was 10. So he has video footage of everything he's ever done. There's scenes of him working with Tom Cruise and stuff when they're all really young. And
Oh, my
they take
gosh.
all the footage from all his personal video cameras over his entire life. They put them together, and he narrates it. And you really, really get intimate with Val Kilmer, and you cannot help but feel like he is a friend of yours after you watch it. And
That's something.
And a lot of people are sparking an interest that previously didn't have one. And Tombstone's obviously a huge part of that.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
that was such a great movie. I've heard that. Who's the actor? The lead guy, Kurt Russell.
Kurt Russell.
Mm-hmm.
That he directed a great deal of that and would not take credit for it.
Yeah.
He
Does a lot of things that he wouldn't take credit for.
Yeah, he's a pretty cool guy.
Yeah.
I think he's contributed a great deal to Hollywood.
Yeah, I think he has too. And by the way, I'm in full agreement with you about your definition of classic film, something that endures through time, and you have to at least say more than 25 years old, because there may be movies now that will be classics, but like art, you can't really call it a classic until you see first that it withstands the test of time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So is that kind of how you'd go to?
Absolutely, but I would add that the idea of somebody remaking it is sacrilege. Like,
I think for some, but I think if you go super far back, like early 30s, before sound and
well, yeah, I mean that you could remake, but could you? If somebody said, "We're going to remake
The Wizard of Oz,"
They've been
talking about that forever. I
They
hope that
remade Wuthering Heights, and that was a mistake.
well, they've done that. I mean, the whole
it's wrong
Emma
to do it all the time.
and Pride and Prejudice, and
Yeah.
all those movies.
Pride and Prejudice was the new film with Keira Knightley.
Yeah.
I thought was an amazing film.
It was
beautiful
very well
film.
done.
There's some that are duds and some
There's-
that aren't.
Yeah.
There are.
I keep hearing
exactly.
about The Wizard of Oz, which is, at its core, it's a movie about two chicks fighting over a pair of shoes. So you could make the whole thing 10 minutes long, but it's no. But in all seriousness, I think that would be sacrilege.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's how I feel. Like
Yeah.
Beckett.
Oh,
If you
my
tried to
gosh.
remake Beckett,
Yeah, that would.
how would you?
How would you?
Exactly.
Yeah,
So
Lion in Winter. The Lion in Winter is another one. How would you redo that?
It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah.
I bet you. Oh,
But they tried to do Mr. Deeds Goes to Town, and that was,
that was a flop.
yeah, well, they called it Deeds with Adam Sandler.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Gary Cooper
Oh,
did the original.
yes. I didn't see it.
Oh,
I
it's
didn't
wonderful.
make that connection
Yeah.
until just
I didn't.
now. It's like,
I didn't see the Adam Sandler
yeah,
version.
I'm not an Adam Sandler. fan.
It's
Sorry.
weird what my thing with him. There are some things I think, oh, this is really good, and some things I'm like, this isn't even funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's one of those actors for me. It's super hit or miss.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you someone else who's like that is Ben Stiller.
Yes.
Yeah, you're right. He is.
When he hits it, oh my gosh, he's magnificent.
And then when it's a dud, you're like, why did you take this?
Why did he redo The Secret Life of Walter Mitty? I mean,
Yeah.
Danny
Yeah.
Kaye had that thing nailed, and it was such a fun
Danny
movie.
Kaye. There's
Danny
another
Kaye.
name who was a lot of people don't know that was a massive talent
Wow.
Yeah.
When I was in theater, there was a young kid. There was a massive production, one of the biggest ones ever. It's the one I'm most proud to have ever been attached to. It was called Titanic, a retrospective, and since then it's been copied because it was about the court trials that went on after the Titanic. It was called a docu-drama where we took the real events from the courtrooms and turned it into a play. They were out for blood and guts. They wanted heads to roll. After
Oh, really? Wow.
The courts in England and the courts here were out for absolute blood.
Well, yeah.
And someone was going to pay for this. And so it was a fascinating thing to be involved with. But there's one of the young actors. In fact, everything I've ever done in my life, music, film, anything, I'm more proud of that one thing than anything else. And this one actor, I think he was about 23, 24 years old, and because we had a huge cast, and backstage was chaos because there were more people than there normally are, so we're tight quarters sharing dressing rooms, and he would always, when we would have discussions and meetings and people would say, "Who's your hero?" he'd say Dick Van Dyke. And he's a young kid, and I'm like, dude, that's awesome. Why? I go, but just out of curiosity. He goes, well, my mom was in theater her whole life. And I go, okay, so I can get how she appreciates Dick Van Dyke, but most younger people gravitate. He goes, no, man, he's the full package. He acts, he can sing.
That's cool.
He can dance.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
He's a comedian.
That's really good.
He goes, people don't appreciate Dick Van Dyke.
Exactly.
He goes, he is a monster talent. And I want to be just like him. And I'm like, dude, that's smart.
Do you know he studied with Marcel Marceau?
No,
That
I
does
didn't know.
not surprise
Dick
me.
Van Dyke did?
Yeah.
No, I did not know that.
Yeah, he's something else.
He is. And we just, you watch him and it looks so natural.
Yeah.
You forget that this person is working at it, And that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to forget it.
Yeah.
You got to make it look easy.
Yeah.
Like Bob Crane.
Yeah.
From Hogan's Heroes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Made it look real easy.
He did. He was a tragic story, but
there's
a natural.
Yeah, and there's so much depth to his story about being a DJ and then being a drummer and being with all these amazing people and the writing that he did and the movies and the plays and everything, and it just gets forgotten because he was the
On Hogan's Heroes.
He was the slapstick guy on Hogan's Heroes.
I know,
Yeah.
and a lot of people get that. A lot of people get that. When we're talking about classic films, and we're really talking about everything surrounding and where they came from
like
and
the center here.
the actors. But another thought when we talked about define classic in film class, our professor asked us define epic. What is an epic film? And I'll tell you what my answer was. I said an epic film is something where they utilize the wide shot with live, large battles, massive cinematography, 200 actors at once. You've got Academy Award-winning DPs for the photography, and the cinematography is everything. Every frame looks like a Hallmark card. I go, that's epic filmmaking, and she said, that's right. She goes, that's what, and there is no telling her, even though it's an opinion, that, but to me, there's a lot of films that are classic that aren't epic.
Right.
But
exactly, yeah.
And there's also some epics by that definition that aren't really classic.
Yeah.
So when people say, oh, an epic film, I think to myself, with a massive budget that they put everything into looking and sounding beautiful, but is it a classic? Like the Ten Commandments is both. It's a classic and an epic.
Ben-Hur.
Ben-Hur.
William Wyler did some doozies.
Oh my gosh! How much? I mean, who here hasn't Googled? And if you haven't, you will now.
Yeah.
All the work involved in the chariot scene.
Yeah. Oh my gosh!
It's
Just that.
just that
alone.
That alone.
Yeah. Well, and even his film Big Country. There's
I
something
know that
very
name.
epic about it. His characters are in these big films almost have a Greek nature. I'm going back to the whole Greek thing.
Yeah.
But they're larger than life. I mean, they're just huge. You had Gregory Peck in that film and Gene Simmons and Chuck Connors, and it was just, if you haven't seen it, watch it. It's real cool.
Big Country.
Big Country. It's a
I know that
great,
name. I don't know if I've seen
It's
it.
a great film. And then Best Years of Our Lives.
I'm definitely going to watch it because Gene Simmons was in it.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding. I know it's a different Gene Simmons.
Yeah, but then he turned around and did Best Years of Our Lives, and those characters are almost like out of a Eugene O'Neill although the ending is happy. Mm-hmm. But it's about warriors who come home from World War II and adapt into life. And it's a 3-hour movie. It's quite a movie.
3 hours can fly by if you're in a movie. I
Can't
remember
get enough of it.
Yeah.
Kardick March
the first time.
starred in it. It was so good.
I shouldn't say the first time. But one movie I saw in the theater was that I didn't want it to end. I did not want it to end. I was upset. Not how it ended, just the fact that it ended was Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
When I was watching Forrest Gump and I saw,
Yes.
I thought, I've been here almost 3 hours and this has got to be coming to an end, but I could stay here another 4 hours and keep watching.
Well, and
Yeah.
that's what I'm trying to say. Forrest Gump is almost like a Greek character. He's so larger than life. He's so.
He is.
It's
I found out an interesting piece of trivia about Forrest Gump the other day.
From watching the movies that made us.
No. But remember the scene where he's running on the football field?
Yeah.
And his coach says, I can't repeat it. He said, he's as stupid as blank, but he sure can run. That coach is Enos from the Dukes of Hazzard. That's the
really?
That's the actor that played Enos from the Dukes of Hazzard.
Oh, my gosh.
Okay, out of the rabbit hole, Drew. Anyway.
Yeah.
that's great.
So
That's cool.
yeah. But I didn't want it to end, and you said
Yeah, best years of our lives. You just sit there and go, oh, it's over.
keep going.
Well, for me, like the first time I saw Cleopatra.
Grace is a big fan of that movie. I couldn't.
Well, I
believe-
love Richard Burton. I'll watch Richard
Okay,
Burton.
all right.
I really struggle with Elizabeth Taylor. I feel bad. I do. I love Rex Harrison.
Yes.
I'll tell you what, did you ever see The Agony and the Ecstasy?
Yes.
Oh, that's
Yes.
a great movie.
I love Rex Harrison.
Oh my gosh, it's a good movie.
What movie hits your spot? Like, what's your well, I was gonna do some stuff today, but this is on. Specifically classic movies, like like an old one. I know what does it for me, but I don't want to go. I don't want to just. I don't. You know what I'm saying? You're like, it was going to be run to the store and do some stuff upstairs.
Oh, but this is
But now
on.
it's going to be hot chocolate and some cookies and 2 hours on the couch.
I've literally done that. I've literally
we
done
all
that.
have done. We've all done.
Yeah.
That. What's your what? Now remember classic movies. Now, because for me it would be Tom and Jerry cartoons, but I'm just joking. We're talking about classic.
Well, as crazy as it sounds, probably one of them would be Cleopatra.
Yeah.
And I
Okay.
don't like that movie.
I watch
but
it a
I
lot
love
when I'm
Rex
working.
Harrison in that movie. I would watch the first half just because I love
So Rex
watching
Harrison,
him.
Rex Harrison.
Gaga Rex be over Rex Harrison or amazing actor.
Amazing
actor.
Okay.
Okay, I'll tell you another wonderful movie that he made. It's a little movie, but I will stay home, is The Ghost and Mrs. Muir.
Haven't seen it.
I've heard of
Oh,
it.
my gosh. Bernard Herman, who wrote so many of the Hitchcock scores, wrote the score to this movie. It's Gene Tierney and Rex Harrison. And a very young Natalie Wood plays her daughter. It is the coolest movie ever. And the musical themes that Bernard Herman wrote stays with you for days. That's wonderful.
Yeah. And Rex Harrison is one of those things like My Fair Lady, when you take out all the singing and stuff and you actually look at what this movie is about, and it's about him being pretentious.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you think of all the dialogue and all the little witty comebacks that he had.
He's
brilliant at
He
it.
is very brilliant.
I can't picture anyone else as
And
Henry Higgins.
It was interesting watching him because his early movies were not that interesting.
Really?
He really started coming in when he started doing The Ghost of Mrs. Muir, and he did the non-musical version of The King and I. Mm-hmm. I forget the name of it, but Anna and the King of Siam.
Yeah.
King. But yeah, he's a good actor. I'll just sit and watch him.
Yeah, but I have not gone out and gotten groceries if An American in Paris comes on.
Oh, really? Now I struggle with that one.
I haven't seen that.
An American in Paris? Gene Kelly?
Well, the one I saw was an American Werewolf.
Well, not.
No.
Saw that one. I loved
Yeah.
it.
Okay. Go ahead.
But no. I mean,
It's a wonderful movie. Leslie Caron is wonderful
yeah,
in that.
that's what I was just trying to. Was it
my
Caron?
gosh.
Caron?
And the guy who played the piano.
Yes. And I can't think of his name either.
Why can't I? Yeah.
And he was.
So many wonderful bits in that whole
If I hear
film.
the name Strauss,
Yeah,
It just makes me smile.
Oh, it's
When we were
wonderful.
talking
much.
about this topic, I told my wife, I said, for as much schooling and as much as I've done in education, I'm ashamed to say how many classic films I have not seen.
Oh my gosh, you're giving your whole list.
she goes, which ones? I go, well, there's some that are major players that you're supposed to have seen. I go, that in film school, we had to watch scenes from them. I said for different reasons, for directing and palette and mise en scène, what's on screen, all this different stuff. I said, but the films themselves I haven't seen. And I haven't seen Citizen Kane. I haven't seen The Maltese Falcon. I haven't seen Vertigo. I've seen scenes.
What?
I've seen scenes
Oh my
from them.
gosh,
That's how I
you
learned about the
gotta
Dolly
watch.
Shot in film school because of the.
Watch Vertigo.
I know. I have it in my list.
You will be.
I haven't
spellbound.
seen.
I've seen it 30 times.
And I've seen. I told her. And Citizen Kane is so.
Oh, it's so wonderful.
I know. And I say I'm embarrassed to talk about this stuff. People look at me like, "What's the matter with you?" And I thought you were into this stuff. And I said I still haven't seen those movies.
Oh,
and I have a deep appreciation for classic film and older movies. I grew up watching that stuff, and the Ten Commandments to me is epic and classic, and I still get glued to it.
Right.
Did you know his wife? Another rabbit hole.
Here we go.
Moses' wife in that is Herman Munster's wife, the actress. I forget.
I'd have to look at it. I'd have to.
Yeah, the one. Remember he goes and there's the guy who's got all the daughters, and he picks one. And
Yeah.
Oh no! That's Adam's family's wife.
No, Morticia Adams.
Yeah.
I thought it was the Munsters.
No, I think it's Adam's family. No. You're right. Carolyn Jones played the Adams family.
Okay, yeah.
Oh my gosh, we're on these rabbit trails.
So,
but yeah.
so see how you get into classic film, and I eventually drag you into Cheese Whiz Town.
I know, right?
Okay, but now I'm going to give you another one.
Do it.
She is marvelous. What is her name?
Who?
Herman Munster's wife. I know her name.
I can't think of her name right
The
now.
lady with the thing and the.
The lady
She
with
was
the thing
a
on the side.
beautiful, beautiful, beautiful woman in the 40s.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And she made a wonderful movie with Burt Lancaster called Crisscross. And the opening,
I've heard of that.
And the opening scene, the first 2 minutes, you see her dance in the rumba, and it's this amazing dance. And she's just dancing in a dance hall with this guy, and this guy's all sweated up. The guy is Tony Curtis,
Really?
a young,
Wow.
extra Tony Curtis. It's the coolest thing you
Now,
ever saw.
I have to ask a question because I believe I'm significantly younger than both of you, but I'm not sure. So when I think
I'm
of,
54.
I'm 69.
okay, I'm 41.
Okay, you're significantly younger.
So when I think of classic films, I know you said about like the 25-year barrier.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, there's some movies that I saw growing up that are classic, but they were made in the 70s.
You have
Or-
a more refined taste than most people your age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Based on, from what I pick up based on what we talk about.
I watch weird stuff. So
Yeah. So
I was watching Rabbit Hole. I was watching Suspiria the other day, and Mike walked in, and he's like, I don't want to know what this is. Just turn it off.
Oh,
But-
but there's some movies. I'm telling you, even
Yeah.
The Haunting,
Yes.
which one?
the early one in
Yes.
the 50s.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
It's a scary movie.
so in my head, some classic movies that I wrote down were The Usual Suspects.
Well, and see, I think those need to withstand the test of time. Now, to me, that one has.
Yeah.
But it's because technically I think that qualifies, right? It's more than 25
I
years
know
old.
that. Who starred in it?
Oh, a bunch of people. Was Tim Roth in it? Or no?
No.
Kevin Spacey.
Kevin Spacey.
Yeah.
Benicio del Toro.
Yes,
Stephen
yes.
Baldwin.
That was a good movie.
I wrote
That's
down,
another one I haven't seen. Everybody tells
And
me I gotta
another
watch.
one that's I think is going to go down as a classic movie is Working Girl.
Yes. But it's the question of the movie that you saw and you went, wow.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Like the
The
usual
classic.
suspect.
Because we put on here one that blew your mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or American History X.
Oh my gosh.
American History X was such
Edward
a powerful
Norton.
movie.
Oh, my gosh.
It's
Yeah.
in a category of its own.
Yeah.
Just like how Train Spotting.
Is as well. Yeah.
The classic movie that I saw that really just made me say, wow, so much power was On the Waterfront. I've talked about this before. Mm-hmm. You've got to watch it.
I will.
You will never be the same.
I write,
Because-
like I said, I write this stuff down when we.
Yeah.
Because when I got to make a stand on something, I go back to Marlon Brando
Marlon Brando.
on the waterfront and Eva Marie Saint. Oh my gosh. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I will.
And he stands on the dock and says, "You're a dirty, lousy, rotten punk, and I'm glad I snitched on you." And they beat the crap out of this guy.
Yeah.
Those
It's
old
really
movies
something.
have such powerful storytelling, and people may not know it, but there's a lot of biblical parallels.
Oh,
And
yeah.
the principles, the morals, the characters, I don't know. It's kind of like the fables and not Aesop's fables, but the lessons. They're powerful. Like you said, you can see the movie. I'm trying to think of what classic film I saw that blew my doors off, and this is going to sound. I mean, this may make you laugh at me, but it took years and years. And when I say years and years, I mean until my early 20s before I would finally listen to my mother and watch It's a Wonderful Life.
Oh.
And
Hard movie to watch.
her knowing how much I loved the Twilight Zone, she would tell me, you would love this. And when I saw that movie, that was the first old film I'd saw. And I was a young guy, and I was like, this is unreal, man. I mean, this is like one long Twilight Zone. This is fantastic.
Oh,
and it blew
beautiful
me away. And that movie, for an old black and white movie, when I was young and resistant, and I wanted the new stuff, color movies and Newton, Star Wars and all this. When that came out, I'm like, I didn't know old movies could be this good.
Yeah.
And then I started.
Oh my gosh,
And now,
yeah.
obviously, it's a no-brainer. There's old films now. You watch them and you go, oh my, this is really good.
Have you watched any of the Michael Powell films from the 40s?
I don't know. I would need titles.
Okay. Black Narcissus. He was a British filmmaker. Oh my gosh. Watch the Black Narcissus. It's a young Gene Simmons and Deborah Carr. Oh my gosh. It's about a group of nuns who are sent to this Indian temple that is kind of decadent, but there's nobody there, and they're trying to turn it into a school, and they're way thousands of feet up on this cliff, and the winds, and it drives some of them. It's fascinating. You want to watch that. The other one is, have you watched The Red Shoes?
I know that name. I think I have.
That's a Michael Powell film. It's
That's the
about
same. Okay.
ballet dancing.
All right.
Oh my gosh, so good. Oh.
Do you think? You said you're 69. So when you was going to the movie theater a big deal for you when you were young? Did you? Well, the reason I guess
Huge.
what I don't really mean it was a big deal. It's a big deal to me still, but I mean, was it very accessible? Did you do it often?
Yeah, because it was in Jersey Shore.
Okay.
And everybody dressed up.
Okay, so because I was kind of scanning our list here, and one of our topics that we talked about is, has digital media and cable changed the impact of classic films, given the fact that they were mostly specifically created for the theater experience?
Yes. It was created for a community experience. So I remember it was the day before Thanksgiving. My dad dressed up, my mom dressed up, my brothers are wearing their little ties. We're all dressed up. And we go, and this theater is packed. And there's a balcony that's packed. This is in Jersey Shore. Mm-hmm. And we're watching White Christmas. Mm. And then they have the intermission, and they have a drawing for a cake that was made.
Yeah.
And they hand the cake out, and they have drawings for free popcorn.
Right.
And it was a wonderful evening. But I would go there also on Saturday afternoons. I could buy a decent candy bar for 5 cents, 10 cents. And I'd watch every Vincent Price ghoulish film that was ever made. In the 50s.
I love Vincent Price.
And I'd watch the John Wayne westerns. I watched everything. I loved it.
It's interesting you bring that up. We were talking about the difference between old movies and new movies. And my wife and I, I'm a pastor, and I have certain things that I think, shouldn't really be introduced into your brain through your eyes on a regular basis.
Absolutely.
But when you look at old movies, this is classic, comes back to what we talked about, classic horror films versus modern day horror films. Evil is recognized as evil in the old films.
Yeah.
And you want the good guy to prevail in those. It's clearly defined.
Right.
This is a good person. This is a bad person.
You know-
And now because of the bloodlust of the audience, sometimes the cheering comes when the slaughtering happens.
right.
It started
And-
with Mephisto waltz. Mephisto waltz.
Yeah.
Suddenly the bad guy wins and everybody's happy.
I saw a discussion one time that changed my entire perspective about the bad guy winning concept, and it was with Stephen King. And I had made a comment to somebody that we were talking about Stephen King, and I said he doesn't know how to write endings. And they said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Well, evil either prevails or there's a strong insinuation that it will." And then I felt bad because I saw an interview with him one time, and I had to have a slice of humble pie because they were asking him about his endings, and he said, "Well, what if everything in the Bible's true? I mean, what we do comes back to us. Just because you may think a person's a good person, but they are a sinner still. They do things wrong. There are problems with them. I mean, what if we all do have to pay, regardless of how nice we may seem to someone else?" And I thought, I never thought about that.
Oh.
And
Yeah.
and I was like, that's a different perspective. No, I still,
Well, but see, once again, it gets down to the point of what are you glorifying?
exactly. I think
Yeah.
in the old horror movies and the classic films, you do root for the good guy. And when I see Vincent Price, you respect his prowess, his acting. Incidentally, a fellow musician friend of mine who used to do the artwork for a graphic novel I was working on and some stuff that I did to have published. He is now the official artist for the Vincent Price estate.
Oh, wow.
Well, for me, it was a big deal because he was a big a fan as I was, and he kept trying to get the job and sending them his stuff, and they gave it to him. And I thought, dude, I was happy for him.
Yeah.
You get really
Yeah.
happy for someone. You see
Yeah.
him doing something like that, and I'm just like, his name's Joel Robinson. He's an amazing artist.
Well-
and yeah.
Speaking of classic films, have you seen Laura with Gene Tierney? Oh, my gosh.
No.
Vincent Price is in that movie, 1946.
I don't know how I could have missed that. I got a Vincent Price box set, and I still seek out. Now you got to admit,
It's so
like any
good.
other actor, you'll come across one or two that he's done. You're like, yeah, that was kind of a
Yeah.
maybe a bad script.
Watch Laura.
Laura,
Oh, my word.
Laura, or
Laura, and it's got one of the best theme songs ever. It's gorgeous. And Dana Andrews is very, very good in this. He was also in Best Years of Our Lives.
Is it black and white flick or
Yeah,
is it okay?
black and
Give me a basic synopsis.
Yeah, Laura is dead, and they're trying to find out who killed her.
Mystery.
Yeah, and there's a picture of her in the. They did a remake of this for TV, and it was horrible. But her picture's in her living room, and the detective, is going through all her stuff, and he's getting kind of like spellbound by her.
Okay.
That's all I'm going to tell you.
All right. All right.
It's a good movie. And I tell you, it's got a big twist. You would love it.
I will. I will check it out.
You said Laura, which made me think of Laura. We haven't brought up Dr. Zhivago.
Oh,
I haven't seen that, and I have it on. I have it on DVD.
oh my gosh, I've seen it so much. Now, those are what you call beyond epic.
Yeah.
That one, and another really great movie is the Seven Pillars of Wisdom. Why can't I think? Lawrence of Arabia.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
that was.
Laurence Olivier.
Thank you.
He's on my list.
But that was-
Laurence Olivier.
No, that was Peter O'Toole.
Peter O'Toole. No, that was Laurence Olivier.
That was Laurence Olivier.
No, not.
No, you're right, it was Peter O'Toole, 'cause it was,
Lawrence of Arabia.
Yeah. Oh,
Peter
I know.
O'Toole,
I know what.
Omar Sharif, 1959.
You're right.
Oh my
I just
gosh.
had them in my head.
Peter O'Toole's another actor. I will stay home
Yeah.
and not get groceries just to watch
He's
him.
Grand Moff Tarkin.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
See my reference?
Yes. Yeah, I got you. I got you.
Oh my gosh, he's so good.
But yeah, Omar
Yeah.
Sharif. I think I told you this story before that my mom looked so much like Julie Christie
Oh wow.
that when my parents got married, my biological father resembled Omar Sharif.
Oh,
so
wow.
people thought it was a stunt. And I'll show you a picture when we're done of my mother, and it makes perfect sense.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
isn't that something?
Yeah, and Julie Christie is still around. She's
Yeah.
still doing. She does a lot of Shakespeare.
Yeah.
She was brilliant as Hamlet's mother in Kenneth. I will watch anything Kenneth Branagh directs.
Oh my gosh, isn't he wonderful?
Oh my God.
Now, did you see My Week with Marilyn?
No, but it's in my queue with.
Kenneth Branagh.
It's Kenneth Branagh, but is it Michelle Williams?
Yes, Michelle Williams.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
She's very underrated.
She really
She's
is.
very good.
She
She's
did
very
that
good.
role extremely well.
But Kenneth Branagh, I mean, especially his Shakespearean stuff is just
He's done some beautiful things.
even Henry VIII, and that was in what, like 1985 or something.
Yeah,
but it's still
he's tremendous. He's tremendous.
he's like a god to me. No, not really.
I knew that you didn't mean that. No. Literally.
I mean, other movies. I was looking down the list of the AFI movies. I can watch Platoon any day of the week.
Oh, really? No, I have a hard time with that because it's really graphic.
Yeah,
But I watched Saving Private Ryan. Didn't blink an eye. Didn't
exactly.
have a problem.
Apocalypse Now, young Martin Sheen.
That was very good.
I can watch that any day.
Brando gave me
Marlon
the creeps.
Brando
Oh
Yeah,
my
in
he was
god!
Apocalypse
creepy.
Now.
Yeah. That was super
At the
creepy.
end, after he hits him with the machete, and he's still going.
The whole, the whole movie is
It just blows your mind.
some of those movies the whole time they're just depressing.
That
Well-
was definitely a depressing movie.
Yeah. There's some. So was Train Spotting, and we of all the millions of times I've talked about movies. For film school, I had to watch one. It was the most disturbing film I've ever seen. And when our instructor was telling us what we watched, because we're talking about directing, one of the other students said, "That's a film that you have to see, but you'll never want to watch it again." And I said, "Oh, really?" And the film was Requiem for a Dream.
Yes, I still have nightmares.
And here's the thing about that. I told my daughter this when she was in films. I said that movie, when it comes to editing and sound editing and film editing, is a masterpiece.
Yes.
I said the way they scored the sound effects, the editing, the cuts. I said it is. I hate to say it, but it's a masterpiece. I said, but the story and the film and the imagery itself is so unsettling and disturbing. And I go, you have to watch it once to know about the film and how to do the work, but you'll never ever want to watch it again. So
It's
she
like
saw
American
it.
History X. It's the same thing.
She
Yeah.
said that, and she agreed. She goes, I saw it, and you're right, and I never want to see it again. And
Yeah, but at least she's smart. There's some people, they'll literally watch those films over and over and over and over and over.
yeah. There's people that fill themselves with darkness.
Well, that's like The Passion of the
Yeah.
Christ, Mel Gibson's. And it was a good movie, graphic,
hard to watch.
hard to watch. We knew someone who watched it 20 times and just got more excited every time they watched it. And I'm like,
I don't get that, and I know that the Christian community, the biggest problem they had with the film, what wasn't really a problem with the film itself. It's that they were disappointed that it didn't expand deeper and further into the resurrection, which they are now. They're making a film, and
Yeah.
Jim Caviezel made the audacious comment that it's going to be the biggest grossing film in history.
Yeah.
And who knows? It may be, because The Passion of the Christ crushed it everywhere.
yeah.
And
they didn't know what to do.
if they put the same
They didn't know
work
what to do with
into
that.
the resurrection and the story of the apostles and all that and Jesus, I mean, it will be amazing.
Yeah.
But watching that realism was so unsettling. Now, some Christians, it touches them emotionally because they think about literally just the spiritual part, that he took all that for me. And so when they're watching it, they kind of disconnect from the gore and they connect to the actual passion
Yeah.
of the love. And now I can watch it anytime, because you know what it's like when you work in film and acting and theater. There's parts of me that can get around it and say, that's an actor and this isn't real.
Yeah.
And I can get through it that way.
I had a hard time.
Yeah.
It was very hard.
It's upsetting.
And I love Jim Caviezel. He's another one. I will not go get groceries.
Yeah.
to watch him.
He's an amazing actor.
If you can understand the words he says, because he loves to whisper his parts.
Did you see Frequency?
No.
That was decent.
It's a father-son love story, kind of. That's a good. I thought it was really good.
He's a marvelous
all right.
actor. Did you see the film My Name is David?
Yes.
You know the woman who this young David ends up with, who finds it. Do you know who that was?
No.
Laurence Olivier's second wife, and she's an amazing actress. She did Hannah Gabler. She's really good.
We're into our red zone already. It
Okay.
seems like we've only been talking for 15 minutes.
I know. Okay, but
I'm going to give you all the last words. You go on and say what would you like to talk
we're
about
in
as
the
we
red
close
zone.
out?
Oh no.
You get to
we didn't answer
you get
all
to
the
close
questions.
the podcast. Well, we kind of touched base on some of these.
Okay,
without-
I got 3 words I just want to say. Preston Sturgis comedies. We have to do a thing on comedies.
Just one on just comedies.
one?
Okay.
Yeah, I can talk all night.
Okay.
All night.
All right.
I think this interest that is our society and the nation, and obviously the globe, is going through a lot of transition and change. But people are hungry for meaningful things. And I think film is such a wonderful thing because it takes everything in. It takes it all in. And you can go back and review it 10 days later or 10 months later.
Yeah.
And I'm hearing more and more people talk about classic films. And they're yearning also for that community experience where they can get together as a community. The theaters in Williamsport are busting out of the seams.
Yep.
Yeah.
People are all coming together, and it's like we're all coming together to see a show. I like to have us get past all the violence, all the scariness, and get back into the theaters.
Yeah.
And not necessarily have chairs where there's cup holders and recliners and things like this. Let's just get a big old theater, get the screen up, get the food, and watch this movie. I saw Rear Window on a big screen.
Yeah.
And I've seen Rear Window, I think, 12 times. I've seen it a lot. I was shocked at what I missed by watching it on TV.
Yep.
Yeah.
Shocked.
Yep.
Wizard of Oz, same thing.
Oh, yeah,
my
big
gosh.
screen. Do you when you have I thought about this when we were talking about that initially. I got really disappointed one time because there was a theater. I know there's one here that does this too, and I've not been there yet. But back home there was one. When I learned about some of these theaters showing old films, I got really, really excited.
Yeah.
And then I found out they're showing them, but they're showing digital versions of them.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself,
They can't get anything else.
I want to see the film.
I know.
And it was, and then I had a reality check about how big a film reel is and all this kind of stuff
Right.
and how unrealistic it is to think that. But I used to like seeing the fuzzies and the cracks and hearing the sound like a record and, the whole, I wanted the real vintage experience. And I thought, Drew, you're in the minority here, buddy. Other people just want to see the film.
That's because you're such a film. I mean, Spielberg, when they came out with digital editing, those old style editing machines.
Oh, yeah.
He bought 20 of them.
Yeah.
Because he was determined, I will keep editing film this way.
Yeah.
And
Keep
it was
moving forward. And
so
it's
hard.
I cut you off. You were saying get back into the theaters, and you realized how much you had missed by not experiencing some of these in the theater.
Yeah, it was a wonderful gathering for community.
Oh, big time.
And I would love to see that happen. I think people are yearning for it. I think what we have at home is wonderful. I think we have what's coming through live stream is wonderful. But so many people, they're hanging a sheet up outside. They're getting their projector, and they're inviting the neighbors over, and everybody's watching a film.
Yeah.
For me, it's always, my wife is not a movie theater person, and she'll go, but for me, unfortunately, it's one of the most exciting things. I used to do it all the time because,
Yeah.
and I love it all. I like going in. I like the smell of the
Yeah.
carpet. I like the red carpet, the lights, and going down and looking at all the posters, getting the popcorn and the food, and I try to time it. I want to see all the trailers, and I want to try to start eating the food right when the movie starts.
Yeah.
And no one, this is my favorite part, no one can say turn that down.
Right.
And
Exactly.
and I get to experience, because I'm all about audio, and I get to experience the explosions and the sounds the way they're supposed to be experienced, and it's such an important part of American culture, and I love it so much, and I get to do it so little.
Yeah.
And it does bring people together. You're
It
right.
does. I would love to see that happen.
I would too. I
You
mean,
know.
more. So I come from a town where they're everywhere. They're massive, giant screens.
Really?
Oh my goodness! In Columbus,
Well, do you know Columbus had like 40 live performance theaters?
yeah.
It's crazy.
That's where I'm from. Yeah, well, we got the Arts District. Columbus is drenched in the arts, all of the arts, and we've got the Arts District, the Columbus. I mean,
Wow.
I could go on and on and on. But
Well, something interesting, because you've only lived here for 2 years now.
about 2 years.
About 2 years. The Roxy only went digital
Yeah.
4 years ago.
Yeah.
I think it was.
I haven't been there yet, so I didn't
haven't
even
been
know
to
that they went
Roxy?
digital. No, and I want.
Roxy's nice.
Up
wanna
until
go.
then, the same, I can't think of his name right now, and that really bothers me, but the same little guy with his little dog, this little old man, they would get the films in the giant reels.
Yeah.
And he was
my
the only
gosh.
one who was allowed to touch them. The
Wow.
ones that look like a big, like 3 pizza pans.
They're huge.
That's neat.
This is another rabbit hole, but I was on vacation in Kentucky one time at the lake, and I wanted to break away. So I got my daughter, and I drove into the nearest town, which I don't know what it was, but it was a small town, and went to a mall because I wanted to see Transformers. There was no local newspaper, so we called. People said, go to this theater. We had to call on the phone, like old school, to get
Yeah.
the place. So we go there, right?
Yeah.
The mall is closed. They're not open yet. It's like, I don't know, noon or something. But the doors are unlocked.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, it doesn't look like anything's open. And she's with me. We walk up to straight ahead. There's all these stores, and there's the movie theater. See the movies. And we go, and there's big boxes right in front of the movie theater doors that were dropped off with FedEx stickers. And they say Transformers. The
Oh, my
movie.
gosh.
The movie.
Really?
Each box is this big, this
Yep.
wide, and this thick. And I picked it up, and I'm like, I told my daughter, I go, this is the movie. Because that's what
that's
we wanted
so
to see.
cool.
I go, they
Yeah.
just left Transformers, the film, sitting outside the door.
Yep.
And I thought to myself, if this were Columbus, they wouldn't
It would
do
be
that.
gone.
That would have been
Yeah.
gone in 2
Yeah.
seconds. And I thought to myself, I just can't believe that you would do that.
Yeah,
you
they
would just
came in
leave
the
it.
mail.
But it was also the first time I got a reality check on just how big those things are.
Yeah, huge.
And yeah, so
Huge. Yeah, so the
some weird
Roxy,
experiences.
the Roxy only played those movies up until that little guy
Well,
died.
I know CAC, the Community Arts Center, used to play. They do Casablanca
Yeah.
and things like that, and that was before.
just seeing it on a big screen would be good.
But this was film. They did.
Yeah, they did actual.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, they did actual like film reel film.
I would love that. This is what we do on the phone. We mean to talk for 30 seconds. And it
Oh
goes
my
on for
gosh,
20.
it goes on and
We
on.
do. We have
I'm
to
just,
close.
I know. I'm just getting warmed up.
You get the last word. I know.
Well, this was fun. We got to talk about comedies.
Comedies and horrors, I think, are the hardest things to
You know
accomplish
what?
in film.
I think we need to have a classic film festival.
Okay, I'll bring the DVDs. You
Where?
bring the popcorn. We'll do
I
it
don't
right
know.
here.
We could do it right here, and we could do.
Got a massive screen.
Oh my gosh,
That's true.
Because the movie that came to my mind while you were talking was The Farmer's Daughter.
The Farmer's Daughter.
Loretta Young, Joseph Cotton, Ethel Barrymore, and a young Matt Dillon.
Ooh.
James Arnaz, young James Arnaz. He's blonde in the movie.
Okay.
We have to. We're way past.
Yeah,
Oh,
we need
okay.
to stop.
Thank you,
But-
Diana.
Thank you.
This was. I love having you on. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, this is great.
We'll definitely do it again. There's all kinds of topics.